Joining us now on today's developments, a member of the House Committee on Homeland Security and Foreign Affairs Committee, Republican Congressman August Pfluger from Texas, an Air Force officer for 20 years, and he's coming back to the program. Thanks very much for being with us, Congressman.
Well, thank you for having me today, and I must say that our heart goes out with the deepest condolences to the family members of those that gave the ultimate sacrifice yesterday. What a tragic day. And just needless and tragic, and our prayers are with their families.
And I do want to get to that. I'd like your response to the general tenor of the briefings that we've had today from the White House, Jen Psaki, from the State Department, less from the Pentagon, which was more specialized. But the sense that the Biden administration continues to say, with some justification, that this is a success. 105,000 people, they say, have been evacuated. There are 500 Americans that they're doing everything they can, who they know want to get out, that they are determined to get out. And I just wonder if that sounds to you a little bit like, look at how well we're cleaning up the mess that we made, or is it justifiable to praise what is a remarkable airlift out of Kabul?
You know who we should praise? It's the airmen, the soldiers, the sailors, the Marines, those at the tactical level who have done a phenomenal job. I mean, look at what Transportation Command under General Jacqueline Van Ovost has done. I mean, these airmen have made a historic airlift in the midst of some extremely tight constraints, political constraints that didn't need to be there. We've heard about Bagram being closed, constraints on an artificial deadline to get out by the 31st, constraints on operating from a single location, which we had a predictable attack yesterday. But the airmen are doing a phenomenal job. Myself as an airman, I can't thank them enough for their professionalism, their experience. They're making the White House look good. It's nothing the White House did. This is all the military, like you said, cleaning up this mess. I believe that's true.
Well, so this week you said that the #1 priority for House Republicans right now is to make sure every single American behind enemy lines is returned safely to the United States. And as we heard in that State Department briefing, they say approximately 500 Americans, U.S. citizens, are still in Afghanistan. They have communicated to the United States government they want out. There's less than 4 days to go. What would it take to rescue these people?
Well, I think they paint a rose-colored picture of the situation right now, that they're very confident and they're committed. But it's going to take an enormous effort. And you're right, it is the most important thing. There will be time for accountability. And trust me, we will have accountability for what happened, why we got to this point in time, and the situation where we had 13 service members killed. But right now, in the next 2 to 3 days, we must do everything possible to get Americans out. And in addition to that, myself, like many other members of Congress, are also working to get Afghan partners out. In just the past 20 minutes, I've received a text message from a military member begging for help for an Afghan interpreter who qualifies for the SIV program, that they can't get to the right gates or they don't understand where to go. And so they're reaching out to my office. This is happening on a minute-by-minute basis. And not only are members of Congress working these issues, but we also have multiple underground networks. You've seen, like, the Pineapple Express example, Operation Sacred Promise, and many others are out there. These are grassroots efforts and networks of people to lead these folks to safety. And Congressman,
would you support keeping troops there? There was a big push when this evacuation began. Among some people say you cannot get this job done by the president's deadline. We need to extend the deadline. Do you think, A, we should extend the deadline and put more troops on the ground to make it happen and keep them safe?
Well, Terry, what I think is that President Biden and the administration wants to close the chapter on this particular event. And they want to move forward with an artificial date. And this was a bipartisan issue. The outcry from both Republicans and Democrats this past week in a briefing with Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, General Milley, Director of National Intelligence, bipartisan outcry to say, get the job done. Don't constrain yourself with a date. It's fine to have that as a goal, but do not constrain yourself with an artificial date. Get the mission done, and when the mission is accomplished, then leave. And so, yes, whatever it takes, whatever method or force or means are necessary to recover Americans safely at this point in time is completely justified.
So you'd send them back in. And Congressman, you said the Biden administration wants to close the chapter of Afghanistan. Do you?
Well, listen, I think the mission is not done at this point in time. And, you know, when you look at the blood, sweat, and tears that Americans and veterans have made over the past 2 decades, we didn't ask for this. This happened. And under President George W. Bush, he did the best he could. And since then, both Republican and Democrat presidents have dealt with this situation. I don't think there was a whole lot of debate. We talked on this issue last week on the show. There wasn't a ton of debate on getting out. It's now the execution of that. And that's the part that we're looking at. Because what we're really worried about right now, it's those prisoners that were released from prison that we know some of those were ISIS or al-Qaeda members. Guess what? We have an issue at our southern border right this very second that we're having to deal with, and we're calling on the Biden administration to release the number of known or suspected terrorists. What's going to happen to those folks in Afghanistan now that we know it's going to go back into a safe haven for terrorism? Are they going to attack the U.S.? They certainly have demonstrated yesterday their resolve to do so.
The government that for 20 years we did try to stand up just melted away, it seems, without our support. So I'm not quite sure how we do that, how we complete a mission when the government doesn't even want to be there. But let me turn to your home state of Texas for a moment. It's becoming a stop for hundreds of Afghan refugees now who are beginning their new life in the United States. How do you feel about that? How do your constituents feel about that? You represent a very big part of Texas, from Midland all the way to the suburbs of Dallas. Well, what's your message to those who may not want them living there?
Well, let's put it in context. And I think the real issue that we have here is that Texas has borne the brunt of an illegal immigration crisis this year. Over 1.2 million illegal immigrants have entered the country, most of them through Texas. And so let's put it into context that we as Texans feel abandoned by the Biden administration on this issue. So it's not that we don't want another country's immigrants here. That is completely false. I mean, Texas is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing states in the country. But it's the fact that we feel abandoned, that we see a rise in drugs, we see a rise in the trafficking of humans. It's just the violent crimes have increased so much, and we are feeling the absolute impact of that here, probably more than any other state.
All right, and finally, Congressman, as a veteran, 20 years in the Air Force, serving our country, what's your message to the families of those soldiers who tragically lost their lives yesterday?
Terry, you know, what a tragic day. To look those families in the eye, to tell them thank you for their service, thank you for their loved one's sacrifice, that it's not in vain, that they stood up for American ideals, that they were doing their best to rescue every American, because we don't leave anyone behind. And I hope that the administration hears this loud and clear, that we will leave no one behind. And those 13 Americans who gave their lives yesterday, they spoke so loudly with the ultimate sacrifice. My prayers and heart go out to you, to each one of you, and just know that we've got your back, that this is the greatest country on the face of the earth, and that your sacrifice is not forgotten.
Congressman August Pfluger, thanks very much for being with us again.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.